I had my first panic attack when I was only 9 years old. I didn't know that it was going to lead to a later diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder. All I remember is that the floor was cold as I curled up underneath the kitchen table, trying to avoid the big feelings that I was having coming at me. It was dark outside, but I didn't have a fear of the dark. The anxiety just hit me out of nowhere. The environmental exposures that you have could affect future generations through transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. If you know a lot about this subject, then you probably know that there's constantly new research coming out on the topic. And if you don't know a lot, I want to put this in an easy to understand format and how it's going to impact you. I personally got interested in this topic because I had a son born with a rare genetic brain disorder. We had to do DNA testing to find out what was going on. I've done research through watching videos, looking at articles, and researching on the CWI website. I want to tell you what it is, how it'll affect you, and what you can do about it. Epigenetics. The definition of epigenetics in the 2013 genetic article called What Do You Mean Epigenetics states that Holliday's definition is the study of changes in the gene function that are mitotically and or meiotically heritable and that do not entail change in DNA sequencing. This means that the genes that you are born with from your parents are not going to be added or taken away. It's simply a process through methylation or histone of turning the genes on or off. On for histone, off for methylation. Transgenerational and intergenerational are often studied in this process of the epigenetic inheritance, but I want to focus on the transgenerational. The transgenerational is anything from your grandparents and farther. If it says intergenerational, it's from simply your parents to the offspring. We all know that we get half of our DNA from our mom and half from our dad. But when you have two children, since it's a random process, you can end up with children with completely different DNA that in the process of the transgenerational inheritance, you're going to have some that are having problems with their histone or methylation problems while others are not. This is going to possibly affect your physical health. In a study done on the effects of prenatal exposure to the Dutch famine in 1944 and 1945, I found an article by the International Journal of Environmental Health done on this famine. And it states, in both men and women, exposure to famine during any period of gestation was associated with reduced glucose tolerance and an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Now, while they showed that there was a potential, the longer the exposure was, for more health problems to arise, there was health problems in every single case that they studied. They also show that it can lead to obesity. So the problem is when you have parents having offspring and they either have insulin resistance, they have type 2 diabetes, they have obesity. These things are going to affect them when they get pregnant and then have more offspring, and that's how this becomes transgenerational. This can also affect your mental health. In the 2024 International Journal of Epigenetics article titled Genetics and Epigenetics of the War Children, it states, recent research highlights epigenetic changes in individuals affected by historical trauma such as the Holocaust, demonstrating how parental trauma can influence offspring. So in this study, they showed that when the parents were exposed to these, their offspring, whether exposed or not, ended up with a disruption in their histone or methylation process that led them to be prone to more instances of PTSD and depression and anxiety. This can also affect your social health. We don't often think about social health being a side effect, but when we have health issues, this is going to affect the quality of our relationships. It's going to affect how you connect with others, how they connect with you, and how you show up. It can also affect your social contribution, things like going to work, being active in your community. So this is a topic that not only affects the individual and their family, but also the wider community around them. What you can do about it is have better nutrition. In the 2017 article by Natalie Hope called Manipulating the Epigenetics of Future Generations, we read, in the future, nutritional consultations should be provided to parents who are trying to conceive in order to guide them to their best health, a better health for their future children and next generation. This article also suggests, with the guidance of doctor, that you take folic acid and a B6 and a B12 vitamin. Those are going to, in combination, help with your methylation process. This article is also suggested for the bettering of your health to decrease your sugar intake. We all know sugar is delicious, but it's not the healthiest for us, and it can disrupt the processes of the histone and methylation. The other thing you can do is you can limit your exposure to environmental toxins, things like alcohol and drugs. But one thing that we don't often think about when we think about environmental toxins are things like BPA. BPA is in a lot of items that I didn't even know it was in, so make sure you're checking your products because we do not want to have prolonged exposure to these things. You can also do things to reduce the effect of trauma. While we cannot avoid trauma all the time, we can do things like therapy and support groups to help us work through these issues and connect with those around us. I've told you what it is, how it affects you, and what you can do about it. During my first panic attack, my mother came to me. She wrapped me in a warm blanket and sat me on her lap. She told me that I was not the only one that had gone through this. Everyone in my family around my age started to have anxiety attacks. She said everybody back to my great-grandmother. Courtney Graffins, a geneticist, said in her TED Talk on epigenetics, there are things that we can do now to positively influence our epigenome. It's not too late to start eating healthier foods that we already know are good for us, like leafy vegetables, whole grains, avoiding cigarettes, cocaine, stress, all of which have been shown experimentally to impact our epigenomes.